Of that slightly, it would greatly reduce the cost of businesses through workers' comp. And somebody else just happens to get the same injury outside of all of these other. My concern is with the cuts in benefits. That's what I was blasting Boza on. Every year, the Associated Press used to have a questionnaire asking legislators what their high priorities were for the session. I always said workers' comp was the high priority.
Summer weather in recent years has been anything but normal. It's not easy to forget about the floods of 1993 or the very cool and wet summer of 1992 or the severe drought of 1988. So compared to other recent summers, it may seem like June, July, and August of this year combined to produce one beautiful summer.
The last 2 or 3 years we've been here, it's been rainy and cold, and this has really been nice for a change.
Drier. But it was a beautiful summer. We haven't had summer for 2 years, and this year was wonderful.
The consensus among area residents is that this year has been warmer and drier. Let's put that theory to the test by comparing this summer with last. The two main weather components to compare are temperature and precipitation. Thermally speaking, the summer of '94 was much warmer than the summer of '93. In fact, 1.4 degrees warmer each day. The number of 80-degree days this summer was 17. Last summer, the total was 11. But these two statistics only represent one half of the story. The number of summer days with above normal temperatures this year was 45. That's a 16% increase over last year's total of 30. Meanwhile, the number of summer days with below normal temperatures fell by 15% from last year. What this proves is that summer '94 was, at the very least, more comfortable. Unfortunately, temperatures are only one half of the equation. Precipitation is a big player in making outdoor decisions during the summer. One thing that most seem to already know is that this summer was much drier than last, more than 6 inches drier. But most residents will argue it's not the amount of rain, but the amount of days it rains. Only 41 days of rain were experienced this summer. By contrast, there were 47 rainy days last year. Because temperatures were more comfortable and fewer rainy days existed this year, it is safe to say this summer provided more quality time outdoors, a fact which most weather-sensitive businesses around the area seem to agree with.
They're in a lot of sunshine, so it's helped the golfer in the fact that the grass is really growing in fast, and they've also had a lot of good days this year to play. It's really been just a great year. I can hardly imagine a better one.
Temperature-wise, it's been quite comfortable for our passengers on board.
If you're wondering about Lake Superior, it affected our weather 41% of the time this summer, and coincidentally, that's just about normal. In Duluth, John Jetta, News 6.
Killed at this building by the people in the family are right there right now. And that's what our job
for her life, and there's 35 million that never had that opportunity to live out their life. And for those of us that are working so
I think this is a tremendous victory. As far as I know, this is the first pro-life injunction case that has come down since the Madsen Supreme Court decision, and it's been in the favor of pro-life people, and it's shown that if as Christians we will stand up for what's right, there's a God on our side that will still protect us no matter what the laws of the land are.
There is one more item referring to that. That is a resolution. Do you want to take? Referring to that, that is a resolution. Do you want to take that at this time right now, Councilor Hardesty, as well as taxes from the growth on this segment system, add to the completeness of the program that we're presenting again.
They're not just angry, they're enraged over this. They feel that they're hoodwinked into doing something that is not going to help that much. They feel that they're standing the expense.
That begin construction of these projects in the spring of '95, completion in the fall of '95. Those avenue assessments equally into the mid-block so that the center lot will bear the same assessment as the corner lot. For that reason, when you're looking at the examples that we provide,
In the race for U.S. Senate, it is the party's endorsed candidate Rod Grams that is dominating the polls. Grams is a 6th district congressman who's been called the most conservative representative Minnesota has sent to Washington in years. Meantime,
The reason we're doing it is because pets do so much to enhance our quality of life. We wanted to do something for our pets and with our pets, and also to help animals that possibly have no future at all.
Protesters have gathered at the ELF project site in Clam Lake on what would have been Gandhi's 125th birthday. They say they're using Gandhi's methods of peaceful protest to show opposition to nuclear war and the Navy's ELF project.
So that's why we're here, and we have a birthday cake, and we're celebrating his birthday and what he stood for, and we feel like we're carrying on his traditions.
Project ELF is a transmitter used by the U.S. Navy to communicate with the Trident nuclear submarine fleet. Protesters say now that the Cold War is over, ELF should be eliminated.
I think what we hope to accomplish is to once again make a witness against this, to once again say, why is this here? Why are we continuing to spend billions of dollars on weapons of mass destruction?
Should I throw some yarn up in the barbed wire? You could. Okay.
You've delivered your presents and everybody's happy about that. I'm sure it's going to be received very well by the poor people of the world and the hungry. But you have to leave, okay?
Opposition to Project ELF gained momentum last week when a group of 5 legislators from Wisconsin and Minnesota sent a letter to the Defense Department requesting that ELF be added to a list of military base closures.
So the next step is to wait and see what kind of response we get from the Base Closure Commission. It's a step. It's not necessarily a very hopeful one because we are dealing with Trident submarines, and that's really the backbone to American nuclear policy right now.
The Ashland County Sheriff's Department issued 16 trespassing citations to protesters who crossed onto the transmitter site. 2 demonstrators were arrested after refusing to leave and are in custody in the Ashland County Jail. In Clam Lake, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
To your car?
Get them out of the area here.
That's okay too if they're willing to go.
Okay.
No, the hospital. They're merging with Superior.
But this come out. And you can see where the hottest part of the fire was. See that beam there that's all bent?
Yeah.
And there's the other one over there. That's where the fire originally started.
This morning in Cook, it was just a vacant building. Now it's a heaping pile of charred rubble. No loss for any business owner, but it's the second time the town of Cook has been burned by fire. Last month, the Northern Farmers Credit Union went up in flames, putting several people in town out of work. And last June, fire destroyed the only supermarket in the town of Orr. Fire Chief Arnie Johnson says this morning's fire was no accident.
And somebody, as far as I'm concerned, likes to start fires.
What's left of the Linden Grove store is now just smoldering ash. The building has been vacant for a couple of years, but there was a time when the shelves in this store were stocked with food, just 10 years ago. But ironically, the building caught fire and closed down. Not only is it scary for fire officials to be searching town for an arsonist with no leads and no witnesses, but for firefighters, more fires mean facing danger more often. This morning, one of the walls of the store collapsed, pinning 2 trained firefighters underneath it.
They heard noises, and there was 5 people here, and they all backed out. Of course, the women weren't fast enough, and this is where they got pinned in.
So these beams actually fell on top of them, and...
Yeah, the bricks and stuff. There's probably, this got held up maybe enough so they didn't get too much of the weight on them.
54-year-old Barbara Johnson was released this morning, but her partner Diana Klukowski broke both of her legs and suffered multiple fractures. She was transferred here to St. Luke's and is recovering from her surgery. Chief Johnson said he knew this fire would be more dangerous because of the age and depth of the basement.
But I had stopped here because I knew there was a full basement in here, and I wanted nobody to go in because of that last night, so I stopped and told them before I...
What do you mean you knew there was a full basement, that you knew that there would be more dangerous fire?
Yeah, it's more dangerous if they went inside the building. I just wanted them to stay out.
Chief Johnson says he's going to spend the day and night watching the fire, making sure the flames don't catch anything nearby and start the building on fire again. Tomorrow he'll continue looking for the arsonist. In Cook, Molly McMillan, News 6. For KARE 11 News, Molly McMillan, Cook, Minnesota.
Was abrupt, and it was like they were having a hard time with that. They said, you know, it'll be
Property taxes at the expense of homeowners.
That are working so that the people feel that the dollars they're spending in taxes, those two go together. If you combine all that, you balance the budget in 8 years. Cut it there. If you're going to increase 4%, you've got to balance it off with something that's 0. Some may need to take a cut, or some can be eliminated. It's the overall spending cap that's placed on growth that is essential to paying for the children, family children deduction, paying for the investment incentives that are part of the first bill. Those two go together. If you combine
to pull things together and make sure that everything works right. I don't think this is unusual. What happens in campaigns is they're kind of crazy animals, and you don't have a whole lot of people to choose from. And
say to somebody who might react saying, hey, they should have had somebody who knew.
Campaigns is they're kind of crazy animals, and you don't...
What happened this week is that we did run into some problems that way. People who thought, handlers who thought that they could tell us what we should do what we should say, and we could not deal with that. We had to be true to ourselves and true again to those people that we're standing for, that we're working for.
And so we do have a new campaign manager now. I'm really excited about it. It's a person who has the same ideals as us, who understands who John, Marty, and I are, and he's somebody who has worked with our campaign in another capacity.
Exclusive disease that we're talking about here is heart disease, the advantage we have. But certainly, I would think we're developing.
The largest taconite producing areas of the state of Minnesota. It produces 25% of the IRRB revenues. Is that over the last decade, the IRRB has invested $10.1 million, and we have had an accumulated loss, operating loss at Giants Ridge of $4.9 million. It is not a profitable project, and it is only a money drain to the IRRB. We believe that these monies can be better invested in infrastructure and better economic development. Open, bid it up. Whoever has the highest bid will receive. Yes, the minutes too. You can construe this as whatever you area. I have done the doors in the Quad City area, and the reception.
guess my personal, this is just
Some
my
school board
personal
members
opinion.
want the ability to dismiss the superintendent at any time without cause, with just a simple majority vote. This type of escape clause is not common, according to superintendent candidate Mark Miles, and he says it implies the board is anticipating failure.
You are now ready to entrust some leadership, or do you need to have a clause in there that just in case the marriage doesn't work out, we can 30-day notice and 6 months pay, and it's not your money, it's a taxpayer's money. It's real easy to spend $45,000 of somebody else's money.
School board member Tim Grover says he doesn't anticipate having to use the termination without cause provision, but he says the board still needs that option.
I don't see a situation. I don't see this happening, but I don't see a situation where you've got a board majority unhappy enough with the superintendent that they want to terminate the relationship and having their hands tied or being unable to do it. I don't see that as a stable situation either. I see that as more of a negative than.
Very elaborate and spend hundreds of dollars on their decorations. I think the idea is to we're proud of what we have in this community, and the Christmas season and the holiday season is one of those things that makes it such a great place.
Through natural attrition in the past year, able to absorb the 424th Medical Detachment within the 477th, and the bottom line, 0 jobs are lost in the Northland.
Pretty scary. I guess I can't explain why he's out and being able to do the things he's done his whole lifetime. It looks like his whole career was what he's done. So.
My kids my kids were getting ready to tune in for Blossman, that sort of thing, the evening stuff, and they were jumped out of the chair and grabbed me. They wanted to verify this is real. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
So what? I want to work there. I've been there for 7.5 years. The guy who's supposed to be dealing with you isn't here right now. Did you call ahead and tell him you were coming?
No,
They said in a panic, he's here.
Oh.
So.
Should have made an appointment, huh?
Nah, it's all right. This is Duluth. You don't need appointments in Duluth.
It's called Powerball, and lottery officials estimate that tonight's ticket sales will peak at 100 per second. With tomorrow's giveaway currently set at $95 million, it's not that hard to see why. The interesting thing is to see how, and the best place to do this is Denfeld Super Value, the top-selling lottery retailer in all of St. Louis County.
People pick their birthdays, they pick their license plate, they pick their address, ages of their children, their anniversaries, anything.
If you think your chances are slim, talk to Dwayne Peterson of Moose Lake. Just this past March, he won $2 million. In fact, not many people realize that purchasing one ticket will give you a 1 in 35 chance of winning a prize. Most people get caught up in the odds of winning the big prize, which is 1 in 55 million. For some, this can lead to despair.
Sometimes the losers don't come back and buy tickets, but they'll come. When the jackpot is this high, we will definitely see a lot of our customers come back.
For others, it means you have to increase your odds.
Yesterday I had a man come in and he bought 142 tickets.
Along with the sizable jackpot of the Powerball game comes some sizable Minnesota statistics. For instance, more than 1,600 Minnesota retailers sell Powerball tickets. You may be surprised to know that each retailer is rewarded with a 5% commission on ticket sales. Nearly $200 million in Powerball tickets have been sold since its inception on April 12, 1992. And of the 5.6 million Minnesota winners, nearly 200 have cashed in on the $100,000 prize, and 4 have won the jackpot.
That lady that had the $100,000 winner here in last April had the Powerball, and she changed it. She would have won $22 million at that drawing.
The $95 million prize translates into $3 million per year, 58.
The process has always been the mayor makes the major
In Superior. Even though many people may feel that the assessment may have been unfair.
The Sioux Line Credit Union was the one that came most.
I, too, know.
Veto was overridden. Thank you.
Probably not nervous or frightened. Actually, it's a little bit of a thrill, almost just a slight, probably a thrilling sensation is the best way to put it.
Almost, if anybody's ever done any boxing or anything like that, you know, it's sort of like you're getting in there, here goes it's almost time to, you're ready to, I don't know, it's not a conflict.
I'm sure a lot of people probably don't realize that, but we have a lot of traffic in and out of here. It's not just the airline traffic that's in and out of here. It's the general aviation, the charter flights, the business people that are constantly in and out of here. It increases the overall economy of the area, and this is very important.
When police arrived, Chris Timmons was on the porch with a gunshot wound and was immediately transported to St. Luke's Hospital. A SWAT team surrounded the home, fearing the gunman may still be armed, but once inside, investigators found 2 victims dead of gunshot wounds. Police say 37-year-old Monty Schultz shot Timmons, then his wife, 30-year-old Cheryl Schultz, before turning the gun on himself. Perhaps the most unsettling fact is that there are 2 children involved. 4-year-old Callie Schultz was in preschool, but her sister, Katie, was inside the home and witnessed the shootings.
Well, I was standing here and the police officers surrounded the house and the door opened and a man crawled out on his knees and he dropped to the ground and rolled over, and 2 of the police officers grabbed him and dragged him out down the block, halfway down the block, and then they pulled him into the ambulance and hauled him away.
Police say there's a history of violence in this home. Separated from her husband, Cheryl sought help from a shelter for victims of violence, and just 1 day before her tragic death, Cheryl Schultz had filed a restraining order.
Look what you got coming here. You got 1 truck coming from your left, 1 going on your right. You got a bird in the middle.
Wide one.
Yeah, that's all you need. Okay.
Us on the top.
At our meeting, what we did is provided a rate structure for the wood park, which not only included Louis Gino's project, but any other project coming to the wood park. It's basically the same rate structure that we proposed back in 1992.
Well, this is like Colorado skiing. We have 30, 35-degree days, 20-degree nights, and that's what we've been having. It may be unusual for Duluth, but it's unusual in a positive way. It's great. It's like I said, the skiing is just absolutely the best it could possibly be right now. And
From us. Yes, how can I help you? It's a
change ever. And a lot of those changes were phased in over.
Clamp down again, more taxes.
Well, what they basically did is they are eliminating a lot of the expenses for the businessman. Although they did raise the mileage on the personal tax return, they changed the standard deductions and exemptions up. But all in all, it's going to generate more tax for the businesses and the individuals. Meals, entertainment, that's the same for entertainment too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because only that entertainment that pertains to the fine and dine you to try and get you is the same thing as getting you. As long as 1986, when President Reagan was in, when they had the Tax Reform Act, was the largest change ever. And a lot of those changes were phased.
St. Mary's Star of the Sea is a fixture here in the central hillside neighborhood. Things here are usually slow to change. That is until someone told Pastor Pat McDowell about the idea for an open all-night chapel. Open all night is a term usually reserved for diners and convenience stores, but Father McDowell says he hopes the constant prayer here will help the central hillside community.
It's not done in a sense of smugness or better than thou attitude. It's done simply in the fact that we pray that God will help any of these people who are suffering under those circumstances.
Holy Innocents Chapel, as it's called, is very small. It's simply decorated. There's only room for about a dozen people, but it was designed for people who perhaps can't find peace at home and are looking for a quiet place to pray, any time of day or night, and so far, people have been coming from all over.
Not only parishioners, we have people coming from Renshaw, we have people coming from Carleton, we have people coming from Superior, we have people coming from a lot of areas that are going to be praying. It's open 24 hours, so we invite anybody, even from the Iron Range. That's my home, and I certainly invite them to come down and feel free to use the chapel at any time. It's always open.
More than 500 volunteers have offered to staff the chapel on a 24-hour basis. In Duluth, Bill Lund, News 6.
Everybody count to three. 1, 2, 3.
We have a lot more support in this building right now than I ever even possibly imagined. I've seen a lot of old friends that I have had their children in gymnastics in the past, and a lot of new people that we've talked to that are real excited to have gymnastics right here in the Kenwood area again.
Smokes?
Yeah.
They're at the back, Marble Red.
Pretty clear cut. It's pretty, the state fire marshal was up, and he's still got to finish his report on it, of course, and he's narrowing it down to smoking.
Okay. Looking like we're talking. Yeah, I did this before. Child. Oh, that's true.
Yes. You don't get one, right? Which?
This is good news for us in terms of trying to encourage and assist people into home ownership, but it doesn't mean that all of our housing stock is affordable for everyone in the community.
We want to make sure we carry the same
quality of services, the same level of services, and we want to save money. And we'll see how much some of these elected officials can back up their words when they say that they're willing to look at ways to save money. There's a significant amount of money to be saved here.
So I've done everything I can do, and they've done everything they can do. That's all we can ask. That's why I never ask where anybody is, because he just, we're doing our best, and it doesn't matter if someone's 15 minutes behind me or 10 minutes ahead of me. I do the same thing.
But one of the things that's occurring, which I hope is not a trend, but has happened here last year, is that it's proved to be a disincentive to people, to companies to hire additional employees.
Cheese on the table and the shoes on our kids' feet.
Parents who pay child support make an important contribution.
High school teens to middle school students, I think, is all we need. And the fact is, we know that that works in the state of Maine. When that kind of legislation was passed and has now been adopted, some $19 million additional dollars was brought in that the taxpayers did not have to pay, and at the same time, only 37 licenses were revoked.
This is all part of
No.
They had hoped to get it yesterday, the Babe Ruth's birthday, but
Laying pound our chest saying no new taxes from our level, it means lots of problems for city governments and county governments.
that's what we're seeing now in the little hometown papers. Well,
Yeah, so I think we got to look at that.
they're getting very anxious.
For Native Americans, this road sign doesn't identify a place. It identifies what they feel is a lack of sensitivity to their culture. For centuries, the word squaw has been considered offensive to Native American women because it refers to them as body parts, not human beings.
It's hurtful to all the Native American women. It's hurtful to some of our Native American men as well, because they're talking about their sisters, their moms, all the women in general, and women in general should be offended by that.
According to an old legend, an American Indian that lived on the point would keep his daughters outdoors while he worked. Fur traders passing by noticed the women and nicknamed the road Squaw Point.
I always thought that it was because of racism and way back when, and they didn't know much about what the word meant, and it just embedded in history so much that they wouldn't know.
Don Litzow took her concerns to the county board this week and rewrote history. After hearing the concerns of the Native American community, the board voted to give the road its original name, Oak Point. Native American women say they hope this change will bring many more changes in cultural attitudes.
There is unity among our Indian people. We're going to change things. No, it's only going to be positive.
In Walker, Molly McMillan, News 6. Molly McMillan, KARE 11 News, Walker, Minnesota.
I can't hear you.
John David D'Oria was released from the St. Louis County Jail at 11 o'clock last night. Federal law requires people who are arrested to be charged or released within 48 hours. But the other suspect, Mark Thomason, will remain in jail because of a technicality. Today, Thomason pled guilty to violation of his probation and was sentenced to 30 days in jail, more than enough time for investigators to get charges approved. The victim, Diane Olson, was a mother of 5 young children. She grew up on the White Earth Indian Reservation. Today, members of the Native American community in Duluth held a rally to say they are angered that police released John D'Oria from jail.
And that's not fair. She's just another Indian to them. Well, to us, she was a mother in the community.
Delinda Hisgun was a friend of Olson's.
She was very bright. She was very intelligent when I would talk to her. I know that as a mother, you know, she still had all her kids. You know, all her kids weren't being dealt with in foster homes, and she was an excellent mother.
But police say the delay in bringing charges is that the body has taken more than 2 days to thaw. And before charges can be filed, the autopsy must be completed. The autopsy was scheduled to be performed today. Police also met this morning to discuss strategy on the case. According to one police source, police succeeded in arresting the right suspects and getting statements before they had a chance to collaborate on a story. The police source says investigators don't think D'Oria will try to flee, but today Channel 6 News talked with the family of D'Oria, who indicated they haven't heard from him since he was released from jail. In Duluth, Bill Lunn, News 6.
Sandy, will you marry me and make me the happiest man in the world? Huh?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
That's right.
Once again.
I mean, we lost a significant amount when you lose that last week in December and you lose January pretty much, and here we are almost the middle of February and we haven't had a very good February yet. Some of the areas in the state have. Hurley has got very good snow and Minocqua area has got good snow now.
To try to stop your car from the top of the hill before the railroad intersection, especially if it's slippery.
Marked per se. The gates are another speed zone. Now the county board is the one that has the authorization to place the speed zone. They'll act on the highway department's recommendation, and at this point we're going to recommend that that be zoned as a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone.
What's the timeline of something like this? Close to them are from, and it's always, those two are always. Put your picture down and then. And they were just lounging in the hallway.
Doug McDonald says $11 an hour is certainly better than unemployment. Since his layoff at Diamond Tool last year, Doug's been through more than his fair share of interviews.
No, I haven't been running into anything. It's just sending out resumes, and I've had some interviews, and nobody has said anything. They just said, we pick somebody else.
22 years of service at Diamond Tool kept Doug out of school, so he's brushing up on his skills because working with the Postal Service means using the computer keyboard. And even with training, there's still no guarantee he'll get the job.
That's kind of hectic. You're a little nervous. You don't know when you're going to get hired again, someplace, find a job.
The first step is to call the U.S. Postal Service at the 800 number on Sunday. Leave your name and address, and they'll send you an application to fill out. But it doesn't end there. Once you've applied, you'll get a sample copy of some questions from the post office. Be prepared to answer questions in subjects like math, grammar, or even some spelling. Maybe those topics aren't your fancy. Well, there is help available.
The residents who haven't taken the exams for a long time, this would be an opportunity for them to brush up on some of those skills and perform better on the exam than going in cold.
Duluth Technical College is offering classes in keyboard review, math, grammar, and spelling. All subjects you will find on the exam. But if you plan to take it, you need to register soon. The post office says they're expecting at least 8,000 people to apply, and only a few applicants will move on to the interviews. In Duluth, Molly McMillan, News 6.
Teenage boy, plays in the Silver Bay hockey team. We are recommending treatment for the hockey team, and we have recommended treatment, started treatment on other close contacts. We've investigated those we think are really at risk of the disease. We are starting on preventive treatment.
It doesn't just provide 48 more good living units for the low and moderate income people. It forces landlords who own substandard units to make them more livable, comply more with building codes, and offer more for the low and moderate income families in these neighborhoods. So we're pleased with that as well. Well, we actually had met with Decathlon Industries out of Oshkosh about doing a project adjacent to our golf course. The city council who had
Oh, the vast majority of it was used for our arenas, and which all the kids participate in, and that money was used basically for paying utility bills, which they amount to almost $60,000.
Even in our own board of directors meetings, usually who shows up are the board of directors themselves and a few interested people.
Whether Conrad's going to be allowed to play or not.
Sure.
So that we can just follow up.
I think it's really significant in this part of the country for families and senior citizens to have energy assistance available.
I asked for a car.
Ferris Bueller used his PC to change grades and cut class. In the 90s, he'd be called a computer hacker. But these days, hackers are changing more than grades. 2 weeks ago, a UMD student pressed charges of email harassment against another student. Administrators say those kinds of cases are on the rise.
People calling people names and sending, in a sense, messages with a lot of four-letter words and tell them where to get off, that kind of thing.
By putting yourself online with the world, computer experts say you're risking unwelcome messages, unauthorized copies of personal documents, and misuse of your name. Computer technology is growing so fast that employees at computer labs like this one have set up user guidelines to keep email harassment under control.
When students come into the computer lab, they're handed this, for the first time to get their account open, they are handed this sheet of paper which has a long list of rules that they have to agree to abide by in order to use the facilities. And then they sign on the back. It says, I have read and I understand the contents of this document.
There's a gray area between harassment and constitutional rights, but authorities say that if a student agrees to sign a contract, they've agreed to respect computer privileges. If they don't, authorities say computer users can be found liable for email harassment. Sergeant Moyle of the Duluth Police Department says if you're getting repeated unwanted messages, call the police. Think about who may be sending them and print out the message. It will be easier to bust your harasser. In Duluth, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
Yeah, you said 9 at 9. Yeah.
Number of visits here and other parts of the state. I want you to know how much conversation.
We still have a segment of Minnesotans who do not have coverage at all, and by extending Minnesota Care, expanding the guidelines for eligibility, we can definitely bring in another segment of that uninsured population.
I have received many calls over the years saying, look, we want to be a part of the lake. Well, we want to treat it like it's our own home and it's like our own backyard. Can we help? Can we volunteer in cleaning it up and making it a better place for everybody?
An insignificant amount of water that's being diverted. It's about 5:15 in the afternoon. This is where the flow goes down then into the... In particular, the one project that has some real critical timelines is the Northwest Maintenance Facility, and we would be recommending to the Pollution Control Agency that that one now be taken off of the pending status and given final approval.
From their homes to
"16-year-old Christine Evans is no stranger to life's obstacles. She was born without the use of her legs, and now she's without the use of her own lungs.
I was told when I was 15 I was going to die.
A year ago, she was diagnosed with a rare illness, primary pulmonary hypertension.
They said the only chance I might have of living is if I have a lung transplant.
It was very rough, very rough. It's hard any time to watch, you know, even your child just have the flu and, you know, sometimes having to stand by helplessly, but this was total helplessness.
But today, there were no boundaries, no hospital walls, just an outdoor celebration of her second chance at life. That's because a 39-year-old donor gave Christine a new pair of lungs through a transplant in January. She takes life one day at a time. Each day, her doctor calls to check on her progress, and Christine's mom is thankful.
It's very important. People need to donate. It's not only does that person live on through the recipient, but it also gives the recipient a chance to live.
There's still a chance Christine's new lungs could fail her, but she wants to think about the future, one without any more obstacles.
I can do anything I want.
In Superior, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
If there's anything you want to add that you want people to know, anything you'd want to say to the person.
While the Iron Range is scratching its collective head over Gino's decision to build a pasta plant in Montana, the Northland is shaking its fists. Over 90% of those who called or emailed us last night said no, Gino won't build, and many of you are hopping mad.
And my feelings go way back when he pulled the pizza roll factory out of here. I'm tired of his games, and I hope that he doesn't, because we don't need him.
And I say, who cares? We don't need 500 more low-paying minimum wage jobs anyway.
Some of you even took the time to analyze Gino's state of mind.
Right now, any man with $1 in his pocket and a family that loves him are far richer than that man who is so rich and yet is so unhappy.
But not everyone is upset at Gino. One viewer who thinks he will build in Hibbing wonders where Gino's friends are.
I've heard of all the good things that he's done for various people. Not for me, but I've heard of it, and I'm wondering where all these people are that none of them have come out of the woodwork to speak up for Gino.
The email wasn't kind of Palucci either. One viewer wrote us and compared the negotiations to army worms, saying, quote, every couple of years he blows through the area and kicks up a fuss. Then he leaves and things go on pretty much as before. Another wanted to analyze the collapsed deal with the state, saying Gino had the horse but wanted the farm. Meanwhile, the city of Hibbing is consoling itself with the knowledge it did everything it could.
I think that everything that he asked for from the city of Hibbing, I think, was done. So we can't shrug our shoulders and say if we'd only done this or the other thing.
In Duluth, Jeff Pappas, Channel 6 News.
I know,
Grow a lot in those 3 years, I think.
it's going to take a little time. I already have several things that Herb handed over to me, and Julie tells me that there's another folder of items to deal with. So, and I have many, many meetings already for the next 2 weeks. So quite frankly, it's going to be a little while until we get everything in order. My other son is in the Army, and he's 23 years old. It would give them somewhere to gather, and I think at that age, I think they need a place like that. It's a social place. It doesn't have to mean they can go and drink Cokes or whatever they like, but I do think
The discordant sounds of practice and tuning emanate through the deck. Musicians have Beethoven on their mind, Beethoven's Ninth to be exact, and they have Tavo Virkhaus back on the conductor's stand.
Well, it is one of the greatest pieces of music ever written by anyone, and it is one of the best of Beethoven. It was his last. He was completely deaf at the time when he wrote it, but the human spirit, especially in the last movement, comes through. The message is that all the men are brothers, and later on it says we would like to hug the whole world and kiss the whole world, and it's a wonderful message.
It's one of the many things. You look at hazardous, so you can have an effective response for an emergency in the county.
Have you ever?
No, I don't think so. I think we push it pretty hard, you know, as far as Tornado Awareness Week. The schools participate in the drills, which are coming up on Thursday. And, you know, people know that tornadoes can strike, and I think they're pretty well prepared. It's a little different, but still the fact is that shelters need to be opened up. And see, our job is to
There was many winter type stuff. Tomorrow it could very easily be a long story. It depends. It depends. We saw channels.
Our work is vital to society and very important to families and children. That's why we're here today to talk about what we can do to improve conditions for my colleagues and myself.
Thank you. You're 27 and a half. It's only money. 27 and a half. And now 30. And now 30. Now 50, 45.
This is satellite thing. $50.
$50, 45, and 50.
And what we're really hoping to do is use these dollars to continue our programs. We find that in the last few years, the Salvation Army has been ending its year in a deficit situation that we quickly make up, but we're hoping this year to end in a positive budget situation.
Now 50. Now 50. 45 and 50. So $45. 15. 15. Ball 50. You want to put $15. 15. Ball 50. 15. Thank you. And 16. And 16. And you'll be on TV. 16. 16. 15. You want to put 16? $15. Number 30.
The atmosphere is filled with thousands of particles. To roughly 12% of Northlanders, some of those particles or allergens such as pollen and mold are trouble. Allergens confuse a person's immune system into releasing a substance called histamine, which in turn causes a variety of nagging symptoms.
Usually
The eyes will kind of itch, watery. The throat usually will close up slightly. Sometimes I can break out in hives. But yeah, there's a lot of just general irritation around the whole face.
Allergens vary throughout the country. In the Northland, the most common specific allergens are birch pollen, ragweed or hay fever, and a mold called alternaria. Less common are grass and maple pollen.
Duluth used to be called the Haven. People used to come up here from the Twin Cities all the time in the fall to get some relief, because we don't have as much ragweed up here as they do down the Twin Cities in southern Minnesota.
For some, the allergy season exists year-round, but for the majority of sufferers, it occurs during the allergen's pollination period. In the Northland, trees pollinate from mid-April through mid-June. Individuals who experience allergic reactions to tree pollen will be the most sensitive during this period. Those sensitive to mold or ragweed will probably suffer during the late summer when weed pollen and mold spores are running high.
If it's drier out, if the day is usually dry and clear, not a lot of moisture in the air, that's usually when it probably is the worst.
Weather is an important factor in determining the extent of the allergen. Since nothing ever grows along Lake Superior, an east wind for people along the North Shore and a north wind for persons along the South Shore will generally mean relief from pollen-related reactions. In Duluth, John Jetta, Channel 6 News. The height of the allergy season is fast approaching, and to many Northland residents, that means different degrees of physical and mental suffering. The degree of suffering depends on the type of allergen and the way contact with that allergen is made.
For all the food allergies that I have, the most definitely it's when I ingest it. That's the most direct exposure. If I'm handling it or whatever, it doesn't usually affect me.
At this point, there is no cure for allergy sufferers. However, there are things you can do to prepare. Daily pollen readings are available in most U.S. cities, including Duluth. Once a value is determined, it can be cross-referenced with a pollen scale to determine the severity of pollen allergies for that day. The higher the value, the greater the number of people affected, and for many, the greater the degree of symptoms. The specific type of pollen can also be determined. For example, birch pollen might be the major problem one day and ragweed the next. Just as important as the type of pollen or mold is the time and length of day you choose to spend outside.
Early morning hours and dry, windy, early morning days are not the time you go out for a jog. Because that's when the pollen's going to be highest. A little bit later in the day, it won't be as high. There are different kinds of molds. For instance, alternaria is probably the most, as I mentioned, the most common or the most prevalent and the most important mold, yet it's a dry mold. It's not a slime mold. And so it sends out its spores on dry days.
Other strategies can also help reduce the chance of allergic reactions. Don't dry your clothes outdoors. Over time, pollen and mold can collect on the clothing and the chances of coming in contact are greatly increased. If you plan to do yard work, wear a protective mask. Shower and change after spending time outdoors, and when indoors, you may find that running your air conditioner provides a means of relief. Keep your lawn cut low to reduce the amount of pollen or mold that may get trapped in the grass. And last, but certainly not least, refrain from rubbing your nose or your eyes. By doing so, you increase the chances of direct contact with the allergen.
Well, besides prescription medicine, I'll either try and get out of the situation. A cold wet washcloth works real well to wipe the eyes out, clean it out. Also helps to cool off your face and bring down the swelling. That usually seems to work the best.
Many of today's antihistamines carry side effects, so it's important to read the label. For those of you who don't benefit from over-the-counter medication, a trip to your allergist may be the only solution. In Duluth, John Jetta, Channel 6 News.
What has happened is when people walk and disturb the vegetation, they're accelerating the erosion. And by replanting the vegetation, we're accelerating the healing process. We just give mother...
And on the news, and people gossip about it at the beauty shop and at the bar.
I think it's been delightful out here. I thought it occurred to me one day that it's not just that he was a teenager, and it's not just that he was a teenager who died. Who cares?
Unless you want to open a bundle.
You know, I call her and stuff. I think she...
Arson is a very difficult crime to get a conviction on, although we know it's arson to comply with a lot of the evidence gathering things that we need to comply with. You know, it's a complicated process, and it's hard to get a conviction.
Another developer criteria, and within 30 days he has to agree to, we should tighten that up, and that would be construction of buildings. So plans and specs. This gets to that earlier question, Lakes Theater, Lake Superior Center, Mr. Brown. And he has 30 days. The answer is yes, they are.
Going to phase one, but we do want to be part of phase two. That's where you stabilize your finances and make it work.
And the original purchase of all of this property was premised on a two-phase development. That covers the document you will be looking at on Thursday.
Absolutely.
It's the package that counts, the total package. Bringing in someone with external experience in the coming aboard.
Well, actually, I'm thrilled. Minnesota Power is a strong and vibrant company, and having the opportunity to fully implement its strategy of diversification is a very exciting option for me, and I look forward to working with the whole team.
Than the void that's there right now. That's an important part of our community downtown, and there's a real emphasis right now on getting as much of that damage restored as soon as we can. I would think so, and they may even take that part of it and do it late at night when there's minimal traffic, both pedestrian and other people. That wouldn't be unusual for this type of thing.
Anglers hope they come face-to-face with this tomorrow, the Stysostedian vitrium, better known as the walleye. It's the fish on everyone's mind.
Walleyes, big walleyes.
At Charlstrom's Bait and Tackle this afternoon, anglers stocked up on jigs, licenses, and dozens of minnows.
Well, we've got everything from small crappie-sized chubs, rainbow chubs, sucker minnows of 4 different sizes, golden shiners, and of course leeches and night crawlers. I'm anxious to get going. It's a long winter without fishing. Ice fishing is pretty good too, but it's still nice to be out here in the summer in the boat and enjoy the weather.
I guess it's like a dog being cooped up all winter. You gotta get out and, you know, go out in the water and just to enjoy it.
And while many of us have severe cases of fishing fever, don't let all the excitement make you forget, as the sign points out, that Sunday is Mother's Day.
Now this is the kind of event where it will allow the city to go back and analyze the results and show where did the flows come up quickly, what were the suspect areas, and to give them the sort of background that the task force, the I&I task force, looked for and the city council would look for. We were exceeding 65 million gallons at that time, so there's a significant overage. It's exactly where it's coming from, but see if it's
What are you doing? What are you doing? I take it it's over. Could I ask you a couple?
Of dealing with the I&I. However, there will be some people that may choose to volunteer their basement foundation drains for some disconnection, and if that occurs, then the city will pay for all that. There will be some people that may choose to volunteer their basement foundation drains for some disconnection, and if that occurs, then the city will pay for all that.
We really encourage people to have their headlights on at all times, to use proper lane placement, to wear bright colored clothing, We also encourage riders to, or other drivers and other vehicles to really concentrate on and look for motorcyclists on the roadway.
Because we're at a place now that is prettier than running along a highway. We're going right through the actual mine pit along the Prairie River. We've got a bridge across the river there, and it's got some beautiful overlooks, and the terrain is quite varied. There's some uphill and downhill, and we go through the forests here at the beginning, and so it's made a beautiful trail.
That'll challenge you to live your life like a young warrior. And there are female warriors. There are just come up to me and say, Billy, we're scared of the word. That's too cruel.
The basic message I wanted people to get and understand here was to live their life like a warrior. And a warrior lives his life under basically 4 concepts: responsibility, humility, the power of giving, and spirituality.
I've not seen him since he doing well. I think the run for Arizona State or something.
We have limited taxation without representation, and that's apartheid. That's quasi-apartheid. And the most freest, the most beautiful country in the world doesn't understand that the native people, the indigenous people, live under a quasi form of apartheid.
Anytime.
Great.
Number 2, we all want to belong. We have this union. And so on.
We're excited about it finally starting. We know there's a lot of cynicism over the past about when were we going to get here. This is a very concrete step for us, so we hopefully will instill a little confidence in the folks that we're here and we're here for real.